Welcome to this tutorial on how to create a recommendation algorithm similar to the one used by YouTube. In this video, we're going to be using NodeJS to build an algorithm that can suggest relevant videos to a user based on their watch history. By the end of the video, you'll have a good understanding of how the recommendation algorithm works and how to build one using NodeJS. So let's get started. So YouTube's recommendation algorithm works on lots of different features, but the main two key features are video performance and viewer personalization. So these are the two that we're going to mainly look at, and underneath you can see I've got a subset of different things, different keys that we're going to be looking at here. So for video performance, we're going to look at the average watch length, the average watch percentage, the average views, the average likes, and the average dislikes. For the view of personalization, we're going to be looking into what channel categories this particular user subscribed to. So not particularly just what channel, it's what the actual category of that channel is. What category the videos belong to that they've watched, also the video watch history. We're going to look at the watch length, the watch percentage, whether they ignored a video, whether they liked the video, whether they disliked the video, and whether they shared that video on social media. So we're going to build an algorithm that looks at all this, and we should end up with a graph that looks like this. So user 1, based on these factors, has watched this video, has liked it, and so on. So we're going to give it different weights, and those weights will then give us this particular number here for a recommendation on that particular video. We will then also create another graph based on the video performance, and it should look something like this. This will give us a score of the average watch length, average watch percentage, views, likes and dislikes, and calculate a value from 0 to 5 based on these values here. So we're going to write those two algorithms, and then what that will kick out, that should kick out a list of 10 videos for the user's recommendations view. So before diving into this any deeper, what we want to do is we want to initialize our npm project. I'm also going to zoom in just so it's a bit more visible. So we want to open up a new terminal, and we're going to run npm init, and this should create an npm project for us. So I'm just going to call this yt-algo, version 1, entry point will be index.js, and we can skip through the rest of these. Okay, so now we have our project initialized. That's if we want to import any npm libraries later on. But to start off with, as with any algorithm, data is key. We can't have an algorithm if we do not have any base data to run it from. So we're going to go through and start adding some data. We'll do this just by creating JSON files for this example. That will not be viable for large projects because the JSON files will get too large. Later on, want to look at creating a machine learning model for this. If you'd like to see how you can do this using machine learning model, please leave a comment below, and I can also create a YouTube video on how to do that. So we're going to create a folder here now called data. This is where our data is going to live, just to keep it separate. And we're also going to create a file called data.gem.js, and this is the file that we're going to use to generate all of our data, all of our sample data. So the sample data objects we'll be having is video, users, viewer personalization, video performance, category, and channel. So we start off by creating the users. So the users will be an ID and a name. To get up and running, we're going to need a few npm libraries. So const fs equals require fs. This is so we can read and write to files. And then the next one we're going to need is UUID. This will enable us to have this ID as a unique identifier rather than just an incrementing number. So to run that, we run const UUID equals require UUID, and then we need .v4 after this. Okay, so now we need to have an empty user array. This is for us to store the users in temporarily before then passing them into the JSON file. We don't want to keep reading and writing it into the JSON file when we can just do it all at once. So let's create a function now to generate the actual users. So we're doing a function generate users, and we're going to have a for loop in here So for let I equals 0, I is less than 20, I++. And then from here we're going to do users.push, and we're going to push in the ID and the name. So this UUID that's generated from here into the array. And once that's completed, we'll have a little if statement below it that says if I is equal to 19, then we want to run fs file sync, and we're going to go to data/users.json, and we're going to stringify that information from the array and push that into the file. And then below this, we want to run the generate users function. So before we forget, let's run npm I uuid --save to install the uuid node library, and then we can run node datagen.js. So now we should see underneath our data folder here, we have a users.json file, and inside here we have all of our users that were created, user 0, user 1, and they've all got a unique identifier all the way up to user 19. So now we know that works. Let's do the same for the category schema, because the category schema is pretty much the same as the user schema. So let's copy this down to here, and we'll change each of these to category. So generate category, and then if we run this again, we should now have the categories in here. So category 0. Let's just double check we haven't doubled up on the data in here. So now that we've generated the users and the categories, let's generate the channels. So we'll generate 10 channels for this. Let's just copy this category 1 down below it, and let's change category now to channel. And inside here, what we'll want to do is we'll want to pull one of these categories inside. So category will be equal to category math.random, and then what we want is category length. And then what we're going to do, we're going to pull the ID through from there. So if we now run this, we should have our new channel JSON here, where we have our ID, our name, and our category. So now that we've generated our categories and our channels, we can now generate our videos, because they require categories and channels to be in there as well. So let's just copy this back down from here. Might as well use this as it's working. We'll change channel to be video. So let's copy that and replace all of these with video. Just to update this here to capital V, capital V, capital V in here. So we need to add, we have ID, let's get rid of name and call that title. We have category, duration, so duration we're going to have between 0 and 1000. This should be in seconds. We'll get rid of published for now, as this won't make a difference. And then we can get to the channel by doing the same as we did with the category. So we get the channel ID that way. So let's hit save and run this again. We should now have video.json. We have an ID, a title, a category, and also a duration there of how many seconds it is, and also the channel that it belongs to. So let's create 100 different videos. So this will be 100 and that will be 99. Just want to check that I've updated these above here. So 2019, 2019, 2019. Okay. Right, with the videos, the categories, the channels, and the users done, that leaves us with 2, which is viewer personalization and video performance. So just thinking about it, we can scrap video performance on this particular one because we're going to be generating the video performance based on the viewer personalization. You'll see as I import this in. So the viewer personalization contains the user's ID and the video ID, and then the data for the actual video performance will come from the watch length, watch percentage, and whether it's been ignored, liked, disliked, shared, subscribed, or skipped. So we can generate all of that data for the video performance on the fly. So the viewer personalization function will be slightly different. We'll have the same array initialization here, the same function initialization, but rather than looping through an index of numbers, what we're going to do is we're actually going to loop through the users, and the users will assign 10 different videos to each user. So that will give us 200 data points that we can work with to start off with. We can increase that if it doesn't yield any good results. But as we go through this and run the algorithm, it will build up anyway and get smarter and smarter and smarter. So let's generate this now. So we want to loop over the users. So for let I is equal to 0, I is less than users.length, I plus plus. For let j equals 0, j is less than 20, j plus plus. So what we're doing here, let's get rid of that L on the end there. What we're doing here is we're looping over the users, and then inside each user we're looping over that, doing an extra loop 20 times. And then we're going to go viewer personalizations.push. And then what we want to do is we want to push this new UID, the user's ID that we get from here, a random video. So a user could technically watch a video twice. We'll have to implement that inside the algorithm. The timestamp of when they watched it, we'll set that all to date now. This will change later, obviously, as we go through and add more. We'll get newer dates. The watch length will be a random number between 1 and 1,000. Watch percentage. So looking at this, I'm going to change this ever so slightly. What we're going to have here is we're going to pull this out and actually set this as its own video here, because we're going to need to reference this data correctly. Otherwise we're going to have lots of random information looking at the way this is done. So this will be just the video ID. We want math.random times, and then we want this to be video number, and then video dot length. Did we have that as video dot duration? Video dot duration times math dot random. So the watch percentage will be the watch length divided by the video duration, and then we're going to multiply that by 100. Let's wrap this inside of brackets just in case it tries anything funny. So let's turn these into variables. Click save. These should do random numbers between 0 and 1. Let's run the code here, run the datagen.js. We get an error. Cannot access video before initialization. Silly me. So video, right, it's because I've called this variable the same as this one here, so we'll just change this to current video. We'll update this now for here, and here. Hit save, rerun this. That should be generated. Here we go, viewer personalization.json. So this is all of the big lump of data that we're going to be using. So we have our true and false values for our likes, dislikes, ignored and shared and subscribed and skipped. So they're all random. So that's the data generation done for this. So in the next video, what we'll do is we'll run through and actually create these algorithms to pull out this data, and then finally to kick out the 10 results. And we can see those mutate as we put more results in. So if you found this useful, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.